So, welcome to Paranormal Versus, and full transparency, the show is going to be a little different today because the time change, the lovely time change. So, my co-host Matt, who's in the UK, their time changes next week. It hasn't happened yet. So, I thought theirs had already happened, so we did not change the time to match. So we are actually an hour early in the UK. So my apologies to everyone. I am totally confused by this time change not being the same in the US and UK. So that's on me. But with that being said, Matt is going to join us as soon as he's available. So you will get us. Kel, unfortunately, is dealing with a family emergency still. So our heart does still go out to her, and our best wishes that everything will be all right. And with that being said, we are going to turn it over to Chelsey Turpening Coxsey and let her introduce herself.
Thank you. Good morning from this side of the world, by the way. And yeah, I am a dream analysis coach. I work with clients on deep shadow work, diving into the subconsciousness and pulling out, your emotional aspects, breaking patterns, creating patterns, and really just diving in and creating the life you want for yourself. Um, that is like the psychological parts of the dream analysis. Then we have the metaphysical parts of dream analysis, which are quite common. And those are actually some of my favorite parts of the sessions. And probably what we'll be discussing more about today being the paranormal channel. And yeah, so I'm also an author and entrepreneur, and I am the owner and founder of the Conscious Collective, which is spiritual resources for the modern world. Yeah, so we got a lot of cool stuff and projects we're working on.
That's really cool. And so, what if someone was to say, when you say dream analysis coach, what does that really mean? So, how would you explain that to someone?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm working with clients. Dream analysis is the technique I use. So what we do is we jump in, we explore your dreams on a really deep level, not just one on one, but as a whole collective of dreams. We pull out different patterns. We dive into different parts and aspects of ourselves and what their messages are. Finding our inner guidance system. We're able to do a lot of the healing through that. um, Building a better relationship within yourself, which helps build a relationship with the exterior world as well. Um, and yeah, but then there's also like the spiritual aspects of it. So it's kind of reconnecting with the mind and the heart, basically, or the soul. And so there's a lot of different angles going with the dream analysis.
So, my question is, how do you determine, like, with all the different symbology and definitions and descriptions, how do you know which one to use? Is there like a certain pattern or a certain element that you look for to go, okay, so we're going to use, say, for example, Mary Summer Rain symbology to explain this dream, or Carl Jung's version, or whoever's version?
Oh, I don't use any versions. I'm familiar with a lot of them and I understand how it works, but I think at the end of the day, they're just trying to teach us a format of how symbolism works as a language. You can even use like tarot as an example. It has its own symbolic language and it flows together, creating this whole message, right? So each person's relationship to symbolism is unique and based off of their own emotional connection to it. So I don't use any I don't use any dream dictionaries. I don't go off of any mass collective concepts of symbolism. So when I work with a client, especially when they're new, we start fresh with a blank slate. We just start exploring the dreams and digging within that, seeing what's going on in their lives, what goes on in their belief system, how they emotionally feel about them. And then then I will notice the patterns, for an example, like I've got one client whose internal parts have color coded themselves, and we noticed that there was a pattern with the color coordinations. Another client, she has, as another example, she's got her symbolism and it's repeated all the time, either like a bathroom or there's chairs, either the chairs are comfortable, the chairs are uncomfortable. There's a transitioning of being on like a local bus or a train or a plane or going somewhere, right? These are repeated symbolic messages or patterns a lot of the time. And then seeing what it holds the message within the context of the actual dream. And what I normally do is if it's sometimes it's pretty obvious, but we have the clients usually I've asked them to go inwards now and really try to tap into their own internal wisdom and see what does the symbol actually mean to them. And it's usually pretty accurate because deep down we all know the meaning of our dreams. It's just pulling it out confidently and knowing that that's what it means and putting it together like a puzzle. Um, So it is nice to study all the different ways of symbolism, but at the end of the day, we really almost need to get that out of our minds and just focus on us as individuals.
That's cool, and that's good to know because I know a lot of people get hung up on, well, but this version says this, and so that's cool that you don't really focus on those. And so, one question I have, and I'm not sure if we even covered this in our episode, but what do you do when you get someone who says, I don't dream. I just don't dream. I don't remember dreams. I just don't. And they're like adamant there is no dreams for you to analyze.
Well, a lot of people who would be adamant probably don't want to work with me, but I've had a few people who like, I don't remember my dreams, but I'm going to give it a shot. And say it's a mindfulness, and mindfulness is like a muscle. And it can be built up. So the more we give our focus to something, the more we're going to notice it and be aware of it. Same with dreams. I've had where we sit there and have a conversation about how they don't remember their dreams, and then like they come to me a day or two later and they're like, "Oh my God, I remember my dreams." It's not. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. The more you tell yourself you can't do something, the more you're blocking yourself. The more you actually allow to be aware of something or put your consciousness towards a direction, the more you're going to shed light on it and see it. So I always say that when you focus on your dreams, you're going to see your dreams. And I've noticed that for people who tend to ignore them or say they don't remember them, the moment they start to remember them, it kind of tends to flood in like a water gate being let loose. Um, so it's like their dreams have a lot to say. It's just they weren't, honestly, they're just ignoring them to an extent without realizing they're ignoring them.
So I'm curious if, because I know I don't want to call it therapy and, get it confused with that, but what the question I'm framing is within it is like in therapy when people hit a topic they don't want to talk about, they start saying nope, nope, nope. I'm wondering in dream analysis, do people have a dream and when they start getting it to repeat and going, hey, wait a minute, I know we talked about this, I don't want to talk about it. I don't like where this dream is going. Do you ever come across that, and how do you help them overcome it?
Yeah, I have. Baby steps. And sometimes as the coach, I feel a little awkward with it too, because, I'm not trying to tell people what to do with their lives, but their dreams tend to do that. Because it's their subconsciousness. And at the end of the day, you're not just creating your reality, you're co-creating it with your conscious parts and your subconscious parts. And when your subconscious isn't being heard, it gets a little pushy sometimes. So I've had ones where I don't want to be too specific with examples, but like say there's something that's difficult in life, that you should do and be choosing yourself first, but you say you self-sacrifice for other people, and it has this emotional guilt and like, this is what I should be doing. I can't choose myself. I would be selfish, right? And your subconsciousness will be over here trying to explain to you, like, this is when it's like your heart is talking to your mind, right? And your heart's over here like, well, we're not happy and this is what's happening. And it might be a hard transition, but the end result's worth it. And like, we'll literally get a lot of messages like that. And but that's a hard one, and I can't sit here and tell someone like, hey, like, you should take this action because it would be good for you. That's not my job, but it's can be a little awkward sometimes when the subconsciousness is like someone towards a direction. So I've noticed it takes baby steps. And so what we do is I try not to focus on the call to action is from the subconscious, but how can we wrap the mind around it? And then I, ask questions like, well, how can we start applying this to your daytime by taking like maybe smaller actions that might lead to making the bigger action more comfortable?
That sounds cool, and not as abrupt as therapy. So you probably get good results with that.
Oh yeah,
But
I've had to do it with myself in the past, and it took 2 years for me on one because I was mindfully trying to control how I was going to do it, and I was holding on to the emotions of guilt or this is what I should be doing and all of that, and
yeah,
those are hard ones to work through.
being that Kel and Matt are from the UK, I actually just thought of a really interesting question because you said you do international work. Do you find that the language is coded as well? Like, an example is, here we call potato chips potato chips. In England, they call them crisps. So there's different words for the same thing. So do you find in dreams the language gets confusing because of the language barrier of different words being called different things? Like looking at a fry and going, that's a fry. No, that's a chip. Wait, what?
It represents what we have it during the day. Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, if you have a question, I'll ask the question, like, what exactly is this? And that's if it holds value or importance within the context of it. It might just be something random that really just helped creating the scene versus like something that's symbolically trying to hold value to the scene. But each culture is unique though too. Like, maybe not experiencing this so much with my clients, but when I'm on like Facebook groups and I'm exploring like international dreams, uh, everyone handles it differently. There's some cultures that are extremely religious or spiritual, like, and but I almost, instead of saying spiritual, I want to say they're very religious, honestly. And, like they will take a dream and be like, oh, that's the devil trying to get you and blah, blah, blah. And like, uh, they don't like it when I bring psychology into the mix sometimes. Uh, and I like to make I like to make dream meanings applicable. To sit there and say, oh, like, if someone goes, hey, I had a dream about an alligator, what does that mean? Like, I
Right.
don't know what that means. Like, give me some context. What's going in your life? Like, then I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, alligator means the devil's trying to eat you. Like, please, that's a bit ridiculous. But as an
Well,
example, I see that a
unless you're
lot
in Egypt,
online, and I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, if you're in Egypt, that's not so ridiculous because the alligator or crocodile was the one who devours those that aren't supposed to go in the underworld, so or
Oh,
afterlife. So
See, but you
there's
knew that would be some meaning for you, but to someone who didn't know that, that would be like that's why I'm like symbolism is a bit tricky. It's never black and white.
right. So Kel is asking a question. She says, "What does it mean if you dream about the same tree all the time? Is there a meaning?"
Well, if you're dreaming about it all the time, there probably is value in that. I would need more context to it. I can't just pick one symbolic meaning without context. So if you wanted to share the dream as an example, that would be great. Because like for me, when I hear dreams in the same dream, I mean, it could mean anything to anyone emotionally, but to me emotionally, for my emotional connection to that, it would be like shamanic concepts. But she might not have that, so that's why it's good to know the context and what if there's something going on in your life, how long have you been having that dream? That's usually when I start asking questions to kind of pull out what it means to you personally.
Yeah, 'cause I was thinking of filling in the blank for her and just saying like a hangman's tree. But then I realized as you're
Yeah,
going with context, going, yeah, that's not going to really help explain what it
what it
means
means.
by dreaming of the tree all the time.
But we see how you had your emotional response or connection to it, right? And I had my own. That's so in a way that's how symbolism works as an example. Which is a fun thing to practice. Like we could pick random symbols and be like, what does it mean to each person? And each person would have a different response to it.
Yeah. I'm curious that in your bio you say you're a Carl Jung enthusiast. What brought you to Carl Jung, and what is it about his work that you just are so into?
Well, I love the pioneer work he's done, and it still holds a lot of value today. And a lot of professionals and people who are in have taken a lot of his works and expanded on it, even the current contemporary ideas. I also have a personal like reflection in my dreams. So at the time I was kind of going through my own awakening. I was doing dream analysis on myself, but I was like very new to it. And I really, I was such a newbie. I had no idea what I was really doing. I was just getting into it for the first time that year. And I was interacting with my guides, and they handed me a book in my dreams, and it was Carl Jung, Man and His Symbols, and which I've had the dream about this book a few times, and I've never really heard of this book before. So then I went on Amazon and I purchased the book, and I started getting into Carl Jung. So technically, my dreams and my guides and my dreams suggested Carl Jung.
Okay,
That would be like a paranormal metaphysical experience where I'm like, okay, yeah.
there you go.
It was suggested to me in my sleep.
So Kellis said, I was told in my dream it had meaning to Matt. I've dreamed about it 3 times. It was a Akron tree, and I keep seeing it in my dreams.
That's meaning to Matt. Well, now that is interesting. Um, I'm curious to see who told you that. Was this like a spiritual experience? I'm assuming from the way you're wording it. And it sounds like Matt would know the true answer to what the tree means, as it would be reflecting something personal to him, which is common. A lot of people do get dreams, like dream messages, not just for themselves, but for other people too. Is that what this is? It sounds like. And have
Hey,
you told Matt about it?
if not, he'll find out shortly.
Yeah, I'm like, because it sounds
But
like you might keep having the dream until you tell Matt about it.
so we
I've
also
seen
have
that happen.
Yeah, Yvonne Dickinson is asking, I had a dream about a woman hiring someone to murder her husband. His name was Dale Johnson. I'm not sure what she's asking.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I would do some research on it. As an example, I follow a lot of professionals in the dream analysis space. And one man had made a post like a week and a half ago about how he was lucid dreaming and he kept coming in contact with this same girl at like a beach scene. And and he kept intentionally trying to let it develop more. so he could get a name. And once he finally got a name of the girl, he woke up, he went on Facebook, Googled her name, and she said which university she went to. He found her on Facebook. It looked just like her name, the university, and he messaged her to be like, "Hey, I just found you in the dream," and now he connected it to physical life. Now that probably sounds a little creepy if she doesn't remember or have dream memory.
Yeah.
But to me, and on a professional level, it shows how layers of consciousness connect, and it was very fascinating. And I was like, oh my god, that is really unique and cool. So
Yeah.
I do
And
believe, maybe Bill Johnson's real, or I don't know, or maybe it's symbolic for something else. I always say that sometimes symbolism like that can be pretty literal, or it can be mirror effect, something internal, also external.
yeah, she's saying she's asking because I remember the dream so well.
What part were you asking about? I missed the question. I thought you were just sharing.
Oh, she was talking about. She was the one who mentioned having the dream about the lady hiring someone to murder her husband, and she's saying she was asking that because she remembers it so well.
Oh, well, it does sound interesting. I'm not sure what that necessarily would mean to you. Um, it could mean several things. Um, Also, I'm curious, maybe just Google, see if you could find this Dale Johnson. It is curious.
Yep.
Um, Cal says it was a voice told me I had to go see the acorn tree as it had significance to Matt. I was told to go find it and take a branch. No idea why. Now that is very interesting. Um, I would bring it up to him because maybe just sharing the message is the branch in a symbolic way. It might not be a physical branch, but some symbolic meaning of relaying information to Matt. And it might not make sense to him right away. Maybe it does, or maybe it will eventually make sense. Because I've had someone share a message with me, and at the time it made sense a little bit, but then 2 years later, it really evolved in more meaning. And it's something I've always kind of kept on the back burner or remembered personally. Um,
Yeah.
but that
So
does sound like it was a metaphysical almost.
yeah, I'm kind of curious as we were talking about cultural impact on how you view things is also an effect. And if someone was to come up to you and say, "Hey, I've had three dreams lately of, like, say, being in the room with the Egyptian gods," and going, what does that mean? Why am I in the room with the Egyptian gods? And have you ever sat back and been like, are you actually seriously telling me you were in the room with the gods, or are you like, okay, so you were in the room with these people, or how do you
No.
handle that?
I like to ask a lot of questions and ask them how they felt about it. Like, my first question with something like that is, I would say, do you feel like it was something that was a part of yourself, or do you feel like it was something consciously existing outside of yourself? And people usually say yes or no right away, and they deep down they know. Then I would explore the conversation more from there with more questions, and because I don't give just straight up answers, I really dig deep. So we could talk about that for like 20 or 30 minutes even. Um, as an example, I'll use myself as an example. Since I've been here in Australia, I've always had like spiritual dreams and stuff, but I felt like I've had more dreams since I've been here. And I had my first experience with a indigenous shamanic figure. And he came in my dream. I remember in the dream, a dream character told me the story about this shamanic indigenous character that people in the local area have been known to witness before, right? In mysterious ways. And as I'm sitting on the back porch in the dream, he walks up out of the tree line, and he was like talking in his language and I couldn't understand him, but he was trying to get me to follow him into the trees. And I've had a lot of meaning develop from that. And I felt that even though I felt like I really did experience an indigenous um, shamanic character, I felt it also represented something within myself that I had to bring out to light, right? which I think we all have these deep spiritual aspects within ourselves. But I saw it as a mirror. I saw it as something that consciously existed outside of myself, but something that was also that it was trying to inspire within myself to embrace or walk a path or bring to light. And trees, then like later on, I was reading more about from like Robert Moss, who's a dream teacher, and he's very shamanic with a lot of his approaches too. And he was suggesting like, talking about shamanic dreams and how there's certain flavors that bring like a recipe that brings about um, certain things in it. And I kind of matched up with a lot of that too. So it was like one of those things where it had a deep meaning within myself. I had an external meaning as well, and how it mirrored in this dual message that all aligned really well. So like maybe with working with it, seeing a deity Egyptian deities could represent something within yourself still, but also external, as like a guess. But I think there could be a lot of meaning with things like that too. Um, and I don't know. I've also had, and as another example, maybe not from a shamanic approach, but I've had dreams where I was in a like courtroom of, I call it a courtroom of light, but it was the space I call in between my just in the astral realms, right, of spirit realms. There's this white room, and I've had a lot of situations in that room, but I've had twice where like this council like has showed up and evaluated me with my guides and some close spiritual friends in that space too. Um, so like we do experience other conscious beings, right? And they can come into our house, or we can experience them in the astral realms. So like sometimes I take a lot of those dreams and I approach them very differently than I would like an emotional, symbolic, internal aspect, if that makes sense. Like,
It does.
yeah, there's a lot going on in some of those spaces.
Yeah. And so Jerry is joining us and says hello, and he says, "Don't they say dreams mean something?"
Yes, they most definitely do. I always say dreams are like tiny puzzle pieces that create a large image, but then we also have that would be like your internal parts of who you are, right? Um, then we also have the dreams that would be like spiritual or metaphysical, and then or out of body even experiences. So there's a lot going on in the dream space.
Right. And Kel is wanting to know, and you and I have kind of talked about this. Can you
Mhm.
dream of a past life?
Most definitely, yes. Yeah. They can be hard to recognize sometimes, but yes, you can. I think deep down you know the meaning or what it is because it was a part of you. That's what I would call like a soul discovery, where you're tapping into a soul or your Akashic records. I've had dreams of my own, but I've also had dreams where I was like tapping into other people's on accident too. Um, and I don't always remember them, but it comes in a form of a book, like I'm almost reading someone's book or something. For me, at least, it symbolically appears as a book, um, which is cool. So there's a lot going on with tapping into the soul through dreams.
No. One question I want to ask, and I think I'm pretty confident I asked it on our other episode, but if not, I want to make sure it gets asked this time is, how do you tell the difference between dream and astral travel?
There's the best way I can describe it is there's a flavor to it. Like when I hear it, I just kind of know. Um, but also the dreamer kind of knows as well because you'll be like out and about kind of. I say like, okay, so when you're in your subconscious states, I call it your house, and has a very sort of certain language to it and a symbolic language, right? And then when you're, oh hi Matt.
Hi, Chelsey. Hi, Michael. How you doing?
We're
Bit of
good.
mix.
How are you?
Yeah, didn't realise that the time changed in the US, so it's thrown us out completely over here. But there you
It
go.
threw me off too. He messaged me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here now, so
No
that's
worries.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Um, No, so I say like you have your house, your internal symbolic realm, right? And then there's like this front door that you can walk out of. And I think it can do that in a lot of ways. But I think basically you could have like conscious aspects outside of yourself come into the house and you can go out of the house. So they usually have a certain flavor to it. Um, that's the best way I can describe it. Like when I hear it, I just usually know. Um, Maybe it's through experience a little bit. And that's probably the best way to put it, through experience, because I've been out of body so many times. I kind of know what kind of gives it away a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So, Matt, we were talking about the difference between astral travel and dreams. How you tell
Oh,
a difference.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's
Wow.
very obvious. People like clearly are out of body or coming back into their body. I know for me, a lot of the times I don't really walk out of my body. It's just like this weird phase that almost can be missed if you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like, I think everyone's unique with it.
And another thing that's happened while you were gone, Matt, was something about an acorn tree. Does that mean something to you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, Kel had a dream the other night about a tree, about an acorn tree. And I don't know whether she's asked Chelsey already because I've missed most of the show, but I know she was going to try and ask you what sort of significance it might have had. So, yeah.
It, yeah, she did, and Chelsey was like, "Well, we would have to ask Matt."
Hmm.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, it does sound like she was getting a message for you. And I
Yeah,
was suggesting that it might not have complete meaning to you at the moment, but maybe someday it'll develop and kind of reveal its
I
messages a
think
little
there's
bit.
meaning there. It's probably for another show, but
Yeah,
there's certainly meaning there. Yeah, definitely. Hmm.
nice.
So,
Well,
Kel has
perfect.
another one for you if you want to go ahead and take it, Matt.
What did she say? I dreamt of a past life and wrote a book on it. Not published yet, but people have asked me how I knew it was a past life. I think they're more vivid. Plus, I had proof of places I saw in my dream. Hmm.
Well, that is interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. I know she's
Yeah.
told me a couple of stories about a dream that she had about a past life. Um, I'm trying to remember what it is now. Something about a house up in Northumberland somewhere, I think, and she was locked upstairs in the attic room or something like that. Could be wrong. And there was another one that she had too when she was on a bridge in Newcastle somewhere, and she ended up jumping off the bridge in a past life. But the bridge isn't there anymore. But she realised years and years later. Well, she realised, I think, just by going through, or she found an old photo online somewhere of what Newcastle, which is where she's from, looked like. I don't know, 200, 300, 400 years ago, and she saw the old bridge that was in her dream that she jumped off. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Wow. That is cool. But it was the same past life. Ah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you can confirm the details. There's this thing where if you Cal, if you like try to meditate and re-enter the dream, you can pull out more details, just like looking at the scenery, trying to locate something. Like people do it with premonition dreams too, where you could try to be like, okay, let's look for a street sign, or what's going on around us, what do the buildings look like, where's the location, can you confirm maybe like a time or familiar faces even. People try to do that and they'll like kind of use it as a form like of, there's like this light hypnosis where you can go back, rewind, fast forward, rewind, pull out more details, stuff like that. It gets really interesting.
Cool. Yeah, wow. What's that question just come up? I had two weird dreams that haunt me. One was about my stepdad, and the other one was the Bel Air house. I haven't been there at all. Too much to type. Oh, right. Okay. Jerry, are you from sort of LA and sort of the Bel Air kind of area? I suppose we need to sort of work that one out first. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Kel says,
Right.
so you're self aware in your dream. I will try that. She corrected the quill to quill.
Yes.
Isn't that lucid dreaming though? When you become aware that you're dreaming, or you're
Yeah.
aware that you're in a dream and you can start doing all these things that you wouldn't normally be able to do in reality.
Yeah, that's lucid. Or sometimes just awareness in general. Like a lot of the times, like I don't actively try to control dreams anymore. It can be exhausting, but like I will know that I'm dreaming and I'll just let the scene play out. And sometimes I'll even consciously be like analyzing the dream while I'm experiencing the dream. So there's different ways to lucid. It's just awareness. And then like out of body, some people say that's an extreme amount of lucidity where you're out of body, but I think there's a slight difference between just, I think lucid is just awareness in general. Being mindful that you're sleeping.
Yeah, we've got another question coming from Yvonne. She remembers being at school with her friends, and her friends would ask her to astral travel and spy on their boyfriends. So that's something I've always wanted to try and do, is astral travel. I've looked into it, I've tried it. I'm sure I came really close one day because I felt something going on, as if something was sort of ascending. But I haven't quite got there yet. But it's something that's always fascinated me. And actually, now we're talking about that, Chelsey, I may have missed this on the first half of the show where I wasn't here. Did you actually talk about the difference between dreaming and astral travel? Was that something that you guys spoke about?
Just as you came on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had just started. Yeah, the astral travel is like slightly different. Like it's not always like the symbolic language of your internal house. So I'd say like your subconsciousness and its language was very symbolic, right? With its language and its scenes and, you know, take you to your childhood home or your school, things like that, right? Out of body experiences are like lingering in the spirit realms, or you're like lingering.
Do you feel it though? Do you feel your soul or consciousness sort of ascending into a different realm when you go out?
Yeah, or people walk through portals. They can feel themselves roll out of their bodies. Or some people say there's this vibration that they sense. I've never sensed that. I've did like the portals, or even a cell phone. Like I've had experiences where I'll be like in a dream, I'll hear my phone go off and I'll look at my phone and like I feel like it like telepathically connects me to the person. So like there's a lot of shared consciousness. You can have shared dream experiences that might not be like fully out of body. So maybe that'd be more like telepathic. There's a lot of different layers of how consciousness can work in dreams. So I think people always focus on the out of body, but I've noticed that there's a lot going on in that.
I've had dreams before where I've dreamt in the dream that I was falling from a great height. Then you wake up and you sort of judder when you wake up. And I was just wondering if that's your astral body sort of going back into your physical body, and that's why you get that feeling of falling, and then, you know, that kind of thing.
It could be. It depends on the context. Like, were you having a symbolic dream before that, or do you just remember?
I still remember part of the dream. For some reason, I was right at the top of a tree. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to climb trees quite a lot. It was the sort of thing that I used to do. But in this particular dream, it was a really tall tree, almost like a kind of evergreen type tree, but a big one. And I was right at the top, and then something happened. I'd slipped and just fell. And I was conscious of that falling feeling and about to hit the ground. And then, poof, I just woke up. And I don't know what sort of meaning that might have. But yeah, and I just wondered whether that was an astral body. It sort of wandered off somewhere. And
it sounds like something that's symbolic, maybe emotional. I don't know what your childhood was like, but falling could have a lot of different emotional impact too.
Yeah.
But there are people who kind of like fall in their body as through like trying to re-enter back in. And I know a popular one is even coming back into your body and experiencing sleep paralysis. Like I had an experience like that where I was clearly remember, and that was an out of body experience, but I wasn't like in a spirit realm necessarily, right? Like I was just in my bedroom floating on the ceiling, like, right, you know, right? And then this like alien, praying mantis alien thing tried to come in and I like pushed it out, and then I went back into my bed or back into my body, which was on the bed. And then I experienced sleep paralysis. And then I remember asking my guides to help release it, and they did, and it was fine. But like, it was, like as an example, like I remember specifically being out of body, at least like lingering around the house. Right. And I've had a lot of out of body experiences where I'm just like floating around my house at night, and then going and laying back into my body. Then I have my son who's 5. When he was like 3 years old, he told me that he's a ghost at night and he can see us all sleeping in our beds.
Wow.
That's an out of body experience. Like, he's not in the spirit realm, but he's out of his body. So I think people think when they're out of body, they think they're like in the spirit realm. And it's not always a spirit realm. Sometimes you're just like lingering around your own physical realm, just like as my son would say, the ghost.
Wow. Do you think he's inherited that ability from you?
I think we all have it. I think kids are better at it. Yeah. I've heard kids explain how, like, when they get deja vu, they remember having a dream about it before it happened. So that means your deja vu were most likely, and I've seen this from a few other dream analysis professionals who, who study it deeply, and they were explaining how we're most likely dreaming the experiences before we have it, and then when we have it, it creates this deja vu effect.
Have you ever had any shared dream experiences with anybody where they've appeared in your dream and then you've spoken to them the next day and they're like, yeah, wow, I remember you in my dream too, and you both talk about the dream? You have?
Yeah, I have a small group of friends that I used to practice with a lot. We would do it in meditation and or in dreams. I had one friend of mine that I've grown up with. He was like really good at popping up into my dreams, and we would do it intentionally. But sometimes we also wouldn't remember, but it would have this flavor of like your higher self, which I think is a multidimensional aspect that we each have that does things a lot. Is very active in those spaces. I've had even my current boyfriend at the time, I've seen him walk into my dreams. I think that we call that dream walking, where people can enter in. I have other dreamers that I'm close with, or just not close with, but I just know, and they've walked into my dreams before. I don't know if they've done it intentionally or not. I've walked into people's dreams on accident without meaning to. And then I've had, or at least setting the intention, right? So that's why I'm thinking sometimes it's the higher self, because I've had clients where I've came into their dreams and assisted in healing, right? And then my favorite, though, is also with my son, the same one who had the out of body, who said he's a ghost. It was like in the twilight morning hours. So he was laying next to me because he's, like little, so he's a toddler. And I remember falling back asleep at like 5 a.m, and he was snuggled up in my arms. And I somehow, I walked into his dream, and he was like in this beautiful kitchen area playing with Legos on the kitchen counter. And it was like couldn't have control of me in the dream. So I don't know why, but I walked up and I knocked the Legos off the counter. And he got so mad at me. He screamed at me in the dream. We woke up and he smacked me in real life and told me I was a naughty mommy. Wow. He was very upset that I had done that to his blocks.
Wow.
So it had the reaction in the dream and in real life. And it was at that point, it confirmed for me that, yes, that was definitely a shared dream experience. And
he's awesome. Mad. Wow. Kel just had a question just now, actually. There we go. If you keep dreaming of someone, does that mean that they're dreaming of you too?
I've heard of that. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Because we could be dreaming. People can hold emotional, symbolic meaning to us as well. Like I've had, I keep using myself an example to kind of help. This is what I do with my clients. I'm always using examples to kind of help clarify. When I was younger, I had a crush on this little boy, right? This boy who broke my heart and rejected me over and over and over again. So as an adult for like 15 years, I kept having dreams of him. And I realized that it represented rejection. So every time I felt rejection in my life, he would appear in my dreams symbolically as a form to show that I was feeling rejected or something along those terms. So at that time, I realized it was my subconsciousness using him as a form of symbolism, and I don't believe it's because he was thinking of or dreaming of me either. I think it was my brain using it as part of the language. But
Was he still the little boy in your dream, or was he grown up?
No, he was grown up.
Oh right, wow.
Like, or it would go back to childhood. Maybe he did various things, but there's a lot of things that hold as childhood or inner child. So like your inner child does bring up a lot of things to voice, to want to be healed or bring attention to, or even, say, hey, this is a pattern that we've been having an issues with since we were a kid, So like there could be a lot of healing or awareness on that too.
Yeah, cool. What about when you have dreams of lost loved ones, family members, friends, or whatever that you've known before? And the dream, when you're in the dream, it's such a vivid dream. It feels so real. And then you wake up and you think, oh, that was just a dream. What's your take on that? Do you think that maybe you're astral traveling and meeting them in the spirit world, or do you think it's all just stuff that's caught in your subconscious from all the years that have gone
I think
by?
there's a difference between a subconscious and a actual experience. So when you're saying very vivid and it felt real, I would say that you probably had an experience with a past loved one.
Wow.
But I've also, I have a grandmother who passed away and she visits me often. And there's times where I dream and she's kind of just like in the space, or I'm going back into a memory, or, but then there's times where we're having a conversation and she's trying to help me with something that's currently going on in my life. Right. And she's like physically kind of there in spirit. As an example, when she passed away, I met her at the gates of, I don't know how to call it, like heaven or the spirit realm. Right. There was this white light with a doorway with no walls. It was just like this arch. And I walked her through. She gave me a big hug and I walked her through, but I don't remember anything past that point of like going into the white light. That's why hypnosis would be cool, to pull out some lost memory a little bit. But that would be an example, right? And then yesterday I had a client that I was working with, and she had a series of a couple dreams where her father was coming to visit her and he was trying to help her. He wanted to communicate, and he was using forms of like a cell phone in a dream and stuff. And then he was actually there, and he was basically trying to help her recognize childhood patterns and how it was affecting her as an adult. And then he even said, something about healing the inner child and how Chelsey will help monitor it, like me, her coach. It's very interesting. And there's a lot going on in those spaces. That's why. People can explore their dreams for a lot of different reasons.
Michael's got another question.
Go ahead and ask it.
Oh, so I want to read it for you. Okay. Have you ever heard of someone dreaming of someone and they appeared in front of that person while they were awake?
You heard it of someone. So you were dreaming of someone, and when you woke up, that person was in front of you?
So what it is like, I'm going to sleep and say I'm thinking of someone, and then that person says, hey, I saw you, and they were wide awake and they saw me there, but I was asleep. So have you heard of that? And
that
how does
almost
that
sounds
work in
like a
dreams?
form of out of body, where you were setting this attention. So that does sound like a form of out of body a little bit. Which is very possible. And then I also would say, like, if you were dreaming and they were dreaming and you guys both saw each other, that could be like, I don't know if it'd be called out of body, yes, but almost like telepathic too. I do believe that there's like a telepathic connection in consciousness. So like, and so I think sometimes when people are having out of body experiences, or you're in those Facebook groups and they're talking about it, sometimes they mix and confuse or bring telepathic connection into that too. But no, I think we are I think consciously we're all part of the same conscious bubble, right? And we can experience those layers of consciousness in various ways. There's no privacy, really. I mean, if you think about it, like we are all one conscious being, experiencing ourselves in various ways.
Wow, all tapped into source. You think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So Chelsey, I mean, do you dream every night you go to sleep, or every morning you wake up? Do you remember your dreams, or sometimes, you get some that are more vivid than others, possibly?
Yeah, very active. Sometimes I try to ignore them.
Hmm.
Sometimes I get a little lazy and I don't keep my journal in the morning. Like the last 2 weeks, I've kind of fell out of practice. I haven't been writing them down, but I've probably had like 4 or 5 dreams that I remember every night. And they'll after a while they'll start vivid, then they'll kind of go fuzzy. I do have tips and tricks on how to like pull out the memory of it. And I think let's even sitting down and writing, thinking about how you emotionally feel about it, kind of pulls up more of a memory trigger. Um, like I know I've right now I'm in another country and I'm getting a little homesick. So I think a lot of my dreams are representing pivotal moments in my life, changes, how I'm emotionally feeling, missing my kids, excited to build new stuff. So like it feels a little chaotic and all over, but dreams do bring a lot of awareness. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty active in the dream space.
Cool. I've got another question actually. I was thinking about what you said just now about, everyone tapping into source for their dreams. There's one, basically you've got source and we're all down here. We've all got unique frequencies, just like we've all got unique cell phone numbers, that kind of thing.
Yep.
When you walk in on somebody else's dream, or they walk in on your dream, do you think they're temporarily changing their dream frequency or the frequency that they resonate on? Like matching cell phone numbers, for example. So say tonight, if you and Michael, but you both fall asleep, if for some weird reason Michael was to tap into your frequency, i.e., like your cell phone number, and you're both dreaming on that same frequency level, tapping into source, do you think that's when you get that crossover that goes on in dreams when other people will appear in that dream? If that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, it does make sense. And a lot of the times for me, symbolically, it appears as a cell phone. So it's ironic that you're using it like on that form. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, like I'll pick up my phone in a dream or there'll be something of a phone. And then I kind of tap into that, like this new space almost immediately.
Mm.
Um, but no, people can do it with intention. They can be unintentional. I've had people come into my dreams a lot of the times and I'm just like, kind of like, oh hey, so and so's here now, like kind of like they came over and knocked on the front door of your house, and they're like, hey, stop by for a visit. And I think I've had Michael pop into my dreams before because
Wow.
we were doing dream analysis, and he's part of my conscious collective, so he is a friend of mine, and like there have been times where I've shared some dreams where I had some weird things going on, and he's like, oh, I can help out with that or something, and um,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
people can
fascinating.
assist each other in dreams. And like I had some weird dark stuff happening at one point, and I remember bringing it up to him, and he was like, "Oh, I can help you with that."
Which brings up an interesting point of, say someone is meaning malintent to you, meaning harm in the dream state, because we all know you can get hurt in your dreams. Is there a way that you can go and see them and say, no, that's not your, I'm not allowing that. You're not allowed anymore in my dream space, and totally block them out?
Yeah, I always say there's a front door. You can lock it. You can have control of it. It's would be smart and wise for people to know how to do that. And I think honestly, we can try not to like overthink it. There's no rules or ways to do it. I just kind of like block myself or say I talk to my guides and I say don't let anybody in or things like that. Like I've got this rule in with my guides where no one's allowed to come into my internal house unless they have unconditional love or good intentions, right? Because like I've experienced a lot of negative things, enough to realize that anything that approaches with unconditional love, is at least not harmful, right? um, Everyone's different. You learn how to use your aura as like a kind of a field of protection too and stuff. So there's a lot of different creative ways. Um, but ideally, if you just think if you have a front door and you don't want people to walk through your house, right? You lock the door or you close the door. If you don't realize that your mind has a front door, it's vulnerable and anything can come in or out as it chooses. And the interesting thing about when you walk out of the front door, you're in the spirit realm. It looks different, right? But when things come into your internal house, it can look and appear as itself if it chooses to, or it can blend in with your symbolic nature and you wouldn't notice it right away. You'll just like sense this weird energy or something's there. But like I've had, and then that's usually like a kind of a different conversation. But yeah, it's interesting how things can blend in with your symbolic nature. And then you can sitting here and like, is this a disconnected portion of myself, or is this something that's consciously not me? Um, you know, I've had some experiences where like I've had to call out certain things and be like, wait, you are not me and you don't belong here. And it like immediately it's like, and I've seen it with clients too. And you're like, ah,
Wow. So some of your clients that you have, then, can you actually tap into their dreams?
I don't
And
do
how
it intentionally, but that's why I say my higher self has. I've had dreams, or I've had one client who told me so my higher self, everyone describes her in a certain element and like wearing a specific outfit, which I'm not going to give any details because that's something I don't share publicly. Because I don't want someone to be like, oh, I saw your higher self. And be like, well, did you obviously watch the podcast where I described what she looked like? Or her essence. That's so I want it to be organic, but like I've had clients be like, okay, well, she was like this and like that, but it was you in this form and blah blah blah. And like, and they'd be like, she was wearing this and she told me this. And it's like this very angelic, wise, like source like energy, right? And she's one time I had a client say she had a dream where he was working through his masculine and feminine side, right? And trying to embrace both parts of his yin and yang. And I walked into his dream randomly and I said, push the red button. And then I walked away. The red button represented his feminine nature and like hitting the button and letting it just come out, right? Then, like the dream this week with my other client whose father who had passed away brought in that I was going to help heal or monitor. So like I kind of appear in various ways, but it's not just clients. So mostly it's a lot of friends or people that who I call other dreamers, we're in a space where we talk about dreams. So that's where I get into like the higher self definitely is like doing stuff if we're consciously remembering it or not. I don't know. I always say they seem to have their own agenda, but it's never negative. It's just like assisting in healing or assisting in a positive way of growth, usually.
Michael's got another good question there. Have you ever had a dream someone, hang on, let me say that again. Have you ever had in a dream someone come who is not who they appear to be to get past your blocks? So a devious
maybe not call it a someone. I've had like negative entities kind of play those tricks. Yes.
Wow.
Something that's negative, that's not necessarily, because a person can still kind of appear as themselves, I've noticed, unless they're skilled enough not to. Now that would be an interesting one. For my own personal experiences, I've just noticed negative entities. Anyone that appears in my dream that I know in like real life tends to look like themselves. And I have one friend who appeared to look like he showed up. He had like wings or something. It was interesting. So like but he was in my symbolic house though too. So we kind of like, but it was interesting because I still knew it was him. And that was just like one time. And then from there, we had a lot of dream interactions, but I knew it was him though. So it was.
When you say he had wings, are we talking about sort of angelic feathered wings or sort of demon type bat-like wings?
Kind of like bat-like or like dragon wings or something.
Right.
He really likes mystics and he's a bit of an oddball. So he had like these, like they were cool. They're just like he had these like weird wings.
Wow.
I was like, oh, is that the outfit you chose?
Yeah. Oh, Kel's got another question. What's the reason if you can't dream anymore?
Everyone dreams. It's just, are you putting your mindfulness and awareness to it? As I say, it's like going to the gym or working a muscle. As soon as you start putting attention to it, it will start happening for you. I always was a dreamer, but I would go long periods of time not remembering dreams or feeling like I wasn't having any. Now I have a lot of dream memory. I remember a lot of my dreams. I could probably sit there every morning and list off at least 2 or 3, if not more. Even just fragmented dreams are still. But even then, to sit there and think I'm only remembering a small portion of what's actually going on. We're active at night. Our brains are just as active as if they are during the day.
Yeah. It's funny how sometimes you can have a dream though, and you wake up in the morning and it's so vivid, and it can take you a good hour or two just to feel normal again because that dream had such an impact on you. I mean, that's happened to me a few times. And they could be random dreams, but I wake up in the morning feeling like, you know, I've been living somewhere else for the last God knows how long. And it takes me a good, I mean, I'm going to use a big word here, a word that we use quite a lot over in the UK. You can wake up feeling quite discombobulated, and it takes you a good hour or two to gain your thoughts back again and be back into the real world again.
Yeah.
I just wondered what your take on that was. You know, why sometimes you can wake up feeling like that? Why does it have such an impact on some people?
It's our emotions.
Oh, okay.
And I think sometimes dreams challenge our even perception of reality. So it could be something that was emotional, like nightmares could have that same effect too, right? But then if you get something positive as well, that it has an emotional connection to it. But there are also dreams, and this is a popular one we've talked about on other podcast sessions, was tapping into like other dimensional aspects of ourselves or other realities. So like I have this theory where like we're not just living one single life, we're probably living other variations of lives, and our soul can be alive a couple of times all at the same time, and we probably are tapping into those realities. Kind of now that we're going to pretend like the movie Doctor Strange in the multiverse, right, where he's like going through all of his different variations of himself in all of these different realities. I do believe that concept is real, and I have a lot of people who talk about dreams like that. And I think those ones hold a significant lingering on our mind because it's like, well, I felt like those were my family or I knew those people. And like that felt like my life, but it's not my life. This is my life. But like it has this weird. So I've noticed, like for me personally and other people, like those dreams for me linger on, and I lean into them more and I think about them and I'm like, what's going on with that? You know, like people will even have dreams where they're experiencing children when they don't have children in this life, but they are tapping into like a day in a life in another life almost.
Could that be a past life that they're regressing back into in their dream, you think?
Yeah, and no, I don't think time really exists in dreams, so
that's true.
It all could be happening at the same time. Like it's it's very like deep and trippy in the concepts of conversation and how does it work.
And Matt, one thing I learned from working with Chelsey on dreams, there is no such thing as random dreams.
Oh, okay. They've all got meaning, have they? Wow.
Yeah, I believe so.
I remember talking with Chelsey, and she would be like, "It's not random." I'm like, yeah, this has nothing to do with this and this. And she's like, hold on, just wait. And then it's be like, oh my God, they are related.
Yeah. Was it Sigmund Freud years and years and years ago? Was he the one that used to interpret people's dreams? Or am I getting confused with somebody else?
He was like one of the originals in Western culture, but then he produced a lot of different minds from there. Like Carl Jung used to work with him, right? But him and Carl have very different ways they view dreams. So I'm not really a fan of Freud personally, but I do respect that his work brought on a whole bunch of branches of different ideas and theories and concepts. So I really personally love like how Carl Jung brings mysticism and psychology together in a really good balance. And I like the way he psychoanalyzes and how he takes it from the individual consciousness to even the mass collective consciousness and how it connects to the God source. And like, so like, there's a lot of really unique things from all of that. And like, I study and even apply some of like the more contemporary ideas that branch off of that.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, another question from Kel. Why would you dream of someone who's passed on?
You could do it just for memory or processing through your subconsciousness, or that person is trying to reach out to you and try to help, assist, or give a message. Usually they're there to kind of help guide or assist, or they themselves need help. We've all heard of like this is a paranormal channel. We've heard of like souls that are stuck or not moving properly through the different spirit realms, or lost type of thing, needing assistance even. I've heard of even personal stories of that where, like, for years, like someone died tragically, and they were like emotionally stuck because they were trying to connect to their fiance, right? But they had like emotional baggage that was holding them to this plane, so they weren't moving on. And it took a couple of years and assistance from their friend to kind of get the emotional closure and help them move to the light. But it was appearing in their physical daytime and in their dreams. So like, it's not for black and white. There's a lot going on. I think when we just realize that there's all these different layers and realms of how we all kind of coexist with, spirits, entities, ghosts, or past souls, all of that, all the good stuff. Dreams it's an easy portal for connection.
Yeah. Wow.
So I actually have an interesting question for you. Is you were talking about, like, how we have different timelines that we may be living at the same time. And I'm wondering, when we do daydreaming, like your mind just wanders off and all of a sudden you're somewhere else. Do you feel like that's more tapping into maybe the parallel world? Or do you think that's your guides trying to say, hey, wait a second, we know you're not asleep, but we really need to get a hold of you, so we're going to put you in a dream state now?
There's a lot with that. It's almost like borderline being in the twilight phase, or like a form of meditation. I think you can do a lot with that space. You can manifest, you can meditate, you can connect, talk, imagine, create. That's a very open lane to do a lot of different things with. So, like, yeah, I think you could do a lot with that space, depending on your intention.
Is that what
I love daydreaming, and I think the imagination is really important too. It's not like child's play.
Wow.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, because I've heard the word bilocation or bilocate out there recently. I wondered if that's what you're talking about, whether, your consciousness or whatever can be in two different places at the same time. And that's what they call bilocation. Bilocate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people bring that up or talk about that. And yeah, I think you can do. I think it's very, like, yes, basically, there's a lot going on in that space. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I've always, when people ask me about bilocation, I always will say, yes, you have your physical self in one spot and your spirit self in another spot. That's how you're in two places at once.
Right.
It's not you physically in two.
Yeah, like someone's like, oh, sending you hugs or good vibes or sending, you know what I mean? I think that would be like a casual form of almost the same thing. Like, I'm sending you something, or I'm comforting you from afar. I'm physically here, but my soul is traveling to you, type of thing. Or yeah.
Wow.
Now, I had an experience that I'm curious your take on, Chelsey, that I just remembered. And I was talking with someone in New Jersey, which is nowhere near Texas for all my UK friends. And she said that she saw me physically at her place talking to her, even though I was in Texas doing my own thing. How does somebody call someone in? How does that work?
I don't know how it necessarily works. It sounds like she's very skilled or has a good eye, personally, because people might sense something, but for her to actually really see it, I have to say it's a skill on her part, but no, it makes sense though. Like, um, yeah, like I couldn't sit here and tell you exactly how it's done. I just know that it's possible and that a lot of people have had experiences similar in some way, shape, or form. So I would
No.
say like, your soul is connecting and she's able to like see your soul form basically.
Because it kind of tripped me out because I didn't even feel I wasn't even whole. Like I didn't even know that I was called over somewhere. It's like I had no feeling, no any inclination that I was in two places at once.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a friend. So, well, I've heard a few stories like this. Uh, one of my friends, he's also in the Conscious Collective. She's very psychic and a medium. And there's this guy online who was like kind of creeping on her. And he kept trying to call her and stuff and like talk to her. And she's just like, I don't talk to strangers. Like, this person needs to leave me alone. And then she kept sensing his presence in her house or in the room. And she kept trying to like get him out. And then he called her and she like accused him of it. And he was like, yeah, I was, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just kind of goofy. But then now that I think about it, I've had some of my friends that I've practiced with say they've sensed me around and stuff. And like, I have intentionally have like lingered or tried to set this tone where I'm lingering in someone's space but these are people I know that are friends, right? I'm not trying to be creepy, that I've practiced with. It's fun. I love to experiment with things like that. So like, or even like, what is it called? Where you can see someone's space or see, oh, I forgot the term. It's popular where you can see their apartment or something. Remote viewing. Yeah, we used to practice that a lot too. So like, there's the same group that we'd practice with meditation or try to have out of body experiences and meet up in the spirit realms or dream walk, or we would practice. So we would practice a lot of things, or even like telepathy. And like they were never in the same state as me. So like, you know, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I want them to think of me. So I would like ask my guides or my soul to have something that reminds them of me or have someone say my name around them even, and like try to practice tips and tricks like that even to see if it works. And I think a good portion of the time it does. So I think it shows that, you know, we're very active in the spaces around us if we realize it or not. And some people are really good at picking up on it.
So I'm kind of curious, Chelsey, with people talking about like hybrids being around where they're supposedly half human, half star alien being. Do you feel like that could impact the dream state, and that if, say, for example, you're half Lyrian, you know, from that place, could that impact your dreams and cause you to dream a certain way and maybe be more lucid dreaming than someone who is just normal every day, someone just going about their day and having and wanting to dream?
Um, I don't want to say yes, but I'm kind of leaning towards it, sadly, because I'm not trying to say like some people are not special, but I've seen it within a group of my clients and even myself. Like, so I have one client who, as an example, has been working with me the longest. He's got Arcturian guides, and they've given him history lessons on planet Earth, the Orion Wars, and he knows nothing about this consciously. Like, he's never filled his brain with this information, right? It came very organically. And they were saying how there is like DNA and reincarnated souls here with special abilities to help the planet and blah, 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 and all that good stuff, right? My guides are Pleiadian, and I've experienced them many times, but I've had a few of my friends also experience them, like because I was ignoring them once, and he showed up in one of my friends' dreams and was like, "You need to give this message to Chelsey," and she's like, "I don't really know her that well enough to like give her this message," and he's like, "Well, we're gonna keep showing up until you give her the message," and he showed up 3 nights in a row until she was finally like, okay, I got this message for you, and they're not going to stop harassing me until I give it to you. um, so like, there's a lot going on with that, and like, I'm not trying to. I don't want to sit there and be like, yeah, we're special, but there's definitely something going on with all of that, and I think if you have like an alien race that's working as a guide, I think it's probably because you have some of their DNA personally. I think there's something going on with that, and they're helping monitor or guide you through this human experience.
Hmm.
Um, and like, for me, as example, I kind of always felt like I didn't belong to this planet as a kid, but I had no idea about any of this stuff, right? I grew up like religious, so like that sounds like crazy. But then I started having these dreams in my early 20s and so on that kind of was representing alien history as well. And so it's interesting, but I have a handful of clients and people have experienced that do have these sort of dreams. And then I have people who are my clients who have very normal dreams and emotional processing. And yeah, they're interacting with like maybe past loved ones and stuff, but they're not having this intermission kind of uh, information though.
Hmm.
It's weird. So those are my alien themed dreams, and it's quite interesting. Aliens have popped up in my dream sessions and within myself a whole lot, and good
Hmm.
and bad. I've seen some bad aliens.
I thought it was
That's,
interesting what you said when I first joined the show about the dream you had when you were on the ceiling and you had the mantis kind of alien there. There have been
yeah,
quite a few sightings of these mantis aliens,
I've heard
actually.
they're supposed to be good, but my experience was felt like that was the reason I was experiencing sleep paralysis was because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So like, I really don't know what I mean. People sit there and say, "Oh, they're good," but I'm thinking, my personal experience did not feel that good. Like,
Yeah, so I can tell you from my research into it, and Chelsey knows more about this, where this is coming from, that certain races, there are a larger beneficial contingency within it, but they all have a malevolent contingency as well.
Hmm.
That there are rogue elements that'll go off and do other stuff. So, like praying mantis, insectoid, it may be a benevolent race, but there are some that are like, you know what? I've learned I can control these people. I'm going to go control them and take a faction and go and do this malevolent. They're still appearing as they are because there's no reason to change their appearance.
yeah,
But yeah, they may be quote a benevolent race, but it doesn't mean they all are benevolent.
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, just kind of like people and how we are, even. Yeah, uh, yeah.
Hmm.
There's a lot going on with stuff like that. So I do believe that our souls are probably have experienced not just this planet but other planets. We've got a lot going on, and then I've had a series like last year. I had three separate clients. My clients don't really interact or talk with each other, right? So there's no way they could be like collaborating these stories behind my back or something.
I can vouch for
So
that.
like for me being in the coach's chair, I'm like, oh my God, it's jaw dropping. But I had the same story of planet Earth's history come from three different clients within like literally 2 week period because I was inquiring on this information and I felt like the universe was explaining it through my clients almost, but also for their own benefit of what their connection to the story is. So the one client was saying how he had special abilities and he was being told the history of the planet, how certain souls are being reincarnated, right? Then maybe a couple days later, I have another client I'm working with, and he's sitting here telling me how in his dream, another alien came and was telling him how uh, Timiot, the planet Timiot, was destroyed, and how they had to replace it with the moon, and how the good aliens, by accident, threw something off with the axis points of our planet and how they felt bad. So they were trying to fix it or something by doing certain things. And then I had
Hmm.
a third client come in and start telling me more details to this same story, to where it literally created one large story through three different voices. And they're not like Googling and researching this stuff. They're like, to them, it was very confusing. But for me, I was like, oh my God.
So, fun fact for you, Chelsey, is Tiamat is believed to be what is the belt between, I believe it's Mars and Jupiter.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's the remnants of
green.
Tiamat.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. I love outer space a lot, and I personally have researched a lot of this stuff. So when they were telling me this, I already had this information in my brain. I already knew about it, but hearing it organically come from them, I was like, "Oh my god, have you guys?" And like, I didn't want to be like weird and to be like blah 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 blah, but I was just like listening and not trying to make it about my aha moments. But I was like, "Have you ever like researched this stuff? Like, did you watch a movie before you fell asleep?" Like, I was like,
Wow.
where did this, like trying to see what did you put in your mind to have this come through your dreams, and there was nothing. It was very organic through all of them.
Talking about watching a movie or something before you dream, what is your opinion of people who say, if I watch a specific thing before I go to sleep, I'll have good dreams or bad dreams? That it
Yeah.
seems to affect their dream state.
Oh, it does. Like some of the things I ask in a contract, I have a questionnaire. It's, like what kind of medication are you taking, if any? Do you fall asleep with the TV on, or do you watch it right before you go to sleep? Things like that, because this is stuff that would affect your subconsciousness. So I really try to dive in and see what they're doing during the day or what they're feeding their brain during the day that might come in through the dream phases. So, like sometimes people are watching like an action movie or something really crazy, and when they fall asleep, yeah, their brain is going to pick right back up where the movie was or whatever. That's common. So like I wouldn't sit there and analyze that necessarily, but like because sometimes I think that's kind of how the brain works at that point. So it's good to know how the subconscious works.
Do you think there's some people out there whose brains and their subconscious are a lot more susceptible to pick up, and if they've been watching a movie or something like that, then their dreams, they're more susceptible to creating these dreams out of what they've just been watching? And that ties in with Penny's question, actually, that she's just said about
I think
zombie.
that's how the subconsciousness works. Our consciousness can only pick up so much information at once, right? We miss a lot of details. Our subconsciousness picks up everything. But the interesting thing about the subconscious language is that it will take whatever information you put in and use it as a language. So just because, like, say someone said can't watch zombie movies because you dream them. Okay, so maybe you are watching a zombie movie, but you're putting that into your like pretend your subconsciousness is AI, right? Like chat GPT. Whatever information you put in, it will relay back in some way, shape, or form. So it will start using it as a part of the language. But it's brilliant. So what it will do is, okay, let's say you've got zombies and you've put zombies into the program now. Well, it could turn around and still use the zombies as a symbolic part of its nature or language in a very brilliant kind of way. So it's not that zombies would be random and it's just puking information out. Like your subconsciousness doesn't just puke dumb crap out of its language, right? It uses it to relay and pull your emotional. So it'll realize, okay, this is your emotional connection to the zombies. Okay, you don't like zombie movies. Okay, you don't like zombies. Okay, well, now I'm going to use zombies to represent something in the message it's trying to portray back to you. So your subconsciousness is brilliant, honestly. It picks up all this information and it turns around and it uses it to get its message across.
Do you think Yeah. Do you think dreams, like say you're watching, say for example, Last Starfighter, and you had memories of, past life, current life, of being in space, you had completely forgotten. Does the subconscious go, hey, here's this movie that's just like something you've experienced? Let's unlock this memory and we'll use the movie to relay the memory so it's easier for the person to understand?
I think very much, yeah, the subconsciousness is creative like that. It can do a lot of different things. And yeah, it would trigger some form of memory or something like that too, or it's trying to relay a message, which is very fitting to the scene you just watched. But it also could represent not just a past life, it could represent how you emotionally feel too. So that's why everyone's a bit different. But either way, it's showing you how it takes the information and uses it as its language.
Right.
Wow.
So
And
something. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was literally going to ask Chelsey. We're going slightly off track, but to me, it's all kind of interconnected. We're talking about dreams and all that kind of thing, and dream symbols and astral projection and everything. What's your take on this whole theory that's come out in the last few years about us living in a simulation, in a matrix type world? What do you think of that? What's your take on that? And some people say break free from the matrix and all this kind of thing, but
I think the matrix can mean a lot of things. I think it's an idea that I look at things very like shamanically. I try not to focus too much on the modern day. So I believe that this reality is real, but it's being controlled, and it's like, I think with too much control, like I don't think it's a computer game. Like I do think it's real, and we're a real planet, and we're existing in this universe. And I think we sign up to come here and experience things. And I think people can karmatically get trapped or to this reality or this planet, if that makes sense. But I don't think things are black and white. So I wouldn't sit here and just say the Matrix is real. And I think people use that word in a lot of different ways. So I try not to jump on that gravy train necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's a fad, and I think people get into this, a lot of that stuff too. But no, I don't think it's a computer game. If that's the case, everything is a computer game. And the true source of reality is just being the white energy. Being at our truest form would be like energy then. And this is none of it's real at that point. I do believe that there is some realness to these experiences. I think, so like if I think of Matrix, I think of it as like having belief systems on what reality is would be like the Matrix. But when you're open your mind to this unlimited trueness of who we are at the core, that's where the freedom is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, completely.
It kind of leads to my question I was going to ask Chelsey is, and I'm sure Matt and Kel have been either thought about this at one point or asked about it, is why do some people dream in color and others don't? And can you change that?
Yeah, you can. You have all of your senses available in dreams. You can even smell and taste if you wanted to. So it's just your sensories. Why people are dreaming in black and white, I really feel like that would represent something emotional going on in your life, or something there's something to it. There's a reason why you're dreaming black and white. It's not by accident.
I've had dreams before. I've never had any dreams where it's been a mono world in black and white. All of my dreams have been in color. But I've had lots of dreams where I'd wake up the next day and I've just had a very realistic dream. But I never recall looking at the sky in my dream. The sky doesn't exist in my dream. For some reason, when I'm dreaming, I'm not looking up at the sky like you would in this world. Every day you're looking up at the sky to see what the weather's doing. But I've had dreams before where the sky hasn't played any part in the dream. And I just wondered actually what your take on that might be, Chelsey. Why?
You probably just focused on what's going on in front of you. It probably doesn't cross your mind to look up. But if you want to practice looking up, you can. It's funny. I had someone told me, people say you can't read in dreams because your subconscious doesn't produce that. That's not true at all. I had a dream last night where I was reading my name tag and I could see my name spelled out, right? Like I could read. I've had dreams where someone presented a scroll or a tablet to me where I could read a bunch of stuff, and then it switched and went backwards into a different language, and it was like coding itself. Like I don't think our brain is limited in those aspects. So like if you wanted to look at the sky, you can look at the sky. I'd imagine your focus is somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Is that another question from Kel? I once saw something that my mother said was a dream, but I remember every detail. Not going to embarrass myself and say what it was. Mm.
Yeah. So what is that when we do experience something, but someone goes, "No, you were dreaming that," but it's so real?
Mm.
That's pretty common. A lot of people will dream their like regular day routines, and it gets very confusing for them. Um, I think there's not much of a difference between dreaming and being awake sometimes in that aspect, and those types of dreams kind of prove that. Um, at this point, what do we choose is real? This we say this reality right now is real because we're awake, but why isn't the nighttime real? And I think that's a popular topic in the dream spaces a lot too. And at the end of the day, our subconscious doesn't know the difference. It's all real.
Mm. Mm.
So I just realized we've been on for an hour and a half.
Wow.
So do you have any other questions, Matt?
I probably, but I can't seem to pull them through right now. I mean, Chelsey, you're really interesting. I'm sure I've probably got hundreds of questions for you. It'd be nice to maybe get you back on the show one day when Kel's around as well, because I know that
Yeah.
she's probably got a lot of questions for you as well.
I'm definitely available to do another one. Just let me know.
That'll be good.
We can be a little more niched in topic if you would like.
Yeah, maybe we can. Yeah.
And we'll make sure we have the times correct.
Yes.
Yeah, no time zone
I
changes.
think today was a one-off, actually. It's probably my fault. I didn't realise that the clocks had changed over there in the US, and we're behind as normal, I think, in the UK. So I don't know when ours changed. I don't know whether it's this weekend or whenever. I need to look into it. But
Yeah, and the reason I didn't ask Matt was because remember in November you guys changed, and then we were a week later.
yeah,
And so I figured since we changed, you guys had already changed, and I didn't think
earlier. No, we haven't. In fact, let me have a quick look on my phone. Let me just use the G word and see when the UK changes to what we call British summertime. Sunday, 31st of March. There we go.
Oh my gosh.
So we got to wait until the 31st of March until ours change.
So we'll have to remind each other for the next episode. It's not 3 o'clock Central, it's 4 o'clock Central.
Yeah, 4 p.m. CST, 9 p.m. UK. Yeah. Huh.
So, yeah, which, as I was saying with Chelsey before we got started, is this is why I make the argument time is not a natural thing. It's man-made. Because if it was natural, we wouldn't have all these different changes. It would all be at the same time. Or
yeah.
The time is now.
Well, I mean, what should we do? Should we close out the show, or have you got any more questions for Chelsey, Michael?
I probably do, but like you, it's like my mind is having a hard time putting them all together right now.
Yeah.
With everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I got a client here in a little bit, so I'll probably try to get some time in between that.
Yeah.
But I will more than willing to come back, and we could explore more niche themes because dreams do cover a lot of different topics. But so again, you guys share my links. If anyone is interested in sessions, I do offer one-on-one and group sessions. Cool. And Michael will probably share my website link.
I was going to say, if anybody wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about it?
So it's ChelseyTurpeningCoxsey.com, and you're more than welcome to follow me on Facebook. I got my profiles pretty open to the public, and I talk a lot of dreams.
Cool.
Yeah. Brilliant. I believe I have even your business linked to in the description. Your jewelry one that you're working on.
Oh, yeah. Thank
Wow.
you. Yep, I got my bracelets.
Oh yeah,
The natural stone charm bracelets. Yep.
cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant. So what should we do? Who's going to close out? Do you want to close out as you opened it? Do you want to close it as well, Michael? Or
I'll let you close it out since I opened it.
I knew you'd say that. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, well, I'd just like to thank again our guest, Chelsey Turpening Coxsey, today for coming on and talking about what she does. It's really, really interesting. I'd like to thank Michael again. Hopefully next time Kel will be with us. She's had a lot on at the moment and she's not feeling 100%. So hopefully she'll be back next time. But on that note, I'd just like to thank everyone. Thanks for watching and see you again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.